Hello TVC people, and a couple weeks ago in my previous haul, I said that I was going to be doing an alternate build for this set, Jace Thunder Dragon EVO. And after building this set last night, I ended up realizing that it needed a lot of changing. In fact, I turned it into something completely different. Introducing Jace Thunder Dragon Mech. Although before getting into this, I will just say a couple things. First of all, this dragon is not an official LEGO set, meaning that it has not been assessed by LEGO's quality controls, meaning that some of the parts of it will break off much easier. Secondly, I did not use pieces for any other sets, so if you guys ask me why didn't I include this or that, it's because it wasn't included in this set. And lastly, this is a very basic mock, and I did really try hard to use the pieces from this set without using others, and I tried to make it look good as well. So please keep the positive feedback down below. And without further ado, let's check this out. Right, so starting off with the top half, getting rid of the minifigures, including Jay, I'll just show you guys what I've done. So on the back here, I've attached the wings and the dragon head and teamwork banner, all using the same pieces and in very similar mechanisms. Although I will just say that the dragon's top head part wasn't actually connected to the piece. Instead, I connected the jaw to the bottom of it. This way, the dragon's head can sit higher up, which in my opinion looks better. Another thing I will just say is that the wings originally come flipped around, but I flipped them upside down just because I think it looks better with the lighting. And if I shine the light through it closer, you guys can just see how cool that looks. Moving on to Jay's sitting area, or should I say standing area, it is pretty much just a single two-stud piece. And it's actually connected using what they connected the tiles with before. And in case you guys are wondering what happened to those tiles, the tiles are actually part of the left arm now. And I've created this arm based on what the Terminator T1000 I believe is from T2. I really like that design, just this really kind of organic and sleek looking thing. And I've tried to mimic that here, but I could only use pieces from this set, and so that was a little difficult. But let me know what you guys think. Pretty much it's just two Nexonite shields plus the tiles, and that's about it. And on the rest of the arm, as I said, this isn't LEGO quality controlled, so many of the pieces will just fling off like that. But on this arm, I did just try to make it look a little bulkier, get some of that bicep in there. I think that looks really cool. And I've got some teeth on the upper shoulder, and I think that looks really cool. Moving on to the left arm, you guys can see that that shoulder build is exactly the same. The only difference I made was in the lower arm, creating this bigger bicep look, mainly because the other side, it has much more on the actual hand itself, and so I wanted to balance both arms out by giving this one a little more. On this arm, I also gave it some lightning, which came from the tail originally, and I think that looks really cool and allows for a lot of posability that way, which is really great. And you guys can actually get both arms to touch, as you guys can see. Moving on to the middle section, which is probably my least favorite part. You guys can see that I used one of the round pieces used for the tail and evoluted middle body. I also used these pieces, which were also found on the middle body. And I used this piece, which was, I believe, found on the Teamwork Banner saddle. And I think that it just doesn't work together that well, mainly because it goes from curved to flat, completely flat edged, to multiple edged flat, and then back to sharp edged. And that just doesn't work that well. Also, you guys can see that the gray pieces here are exposed, and that really doesn't give it a great look. But, you know, it still works. Had to work with what I had, and I guess it's fine. Another thing I forgot to mention is that up top here, I also used one of those middle body / tail pieces just to give it some nice curve. And I actually think this looks really good. It just seems to line up so perfectly, not with the saddle, but like there, it lines up so perfectly, and I think it looks really nice. And to sit Jay in, all you need to do is get the Jay minifigure and connect his legs to the studs. And boom, there you guys go. And in case you guys are wondering whether this works with the hood, it does. Let me just get that for you. And there you go. As you guys can see from the sides, it's not touching at all, which is great. And if I shake this guy around a bit, he's not coming out either. And that's great. Moving on to the legs, which are probably my second least favorite part of the build. You guys can see that the upper leg parts are incredibly long. They're about twice as long as the base actually. And that's just because I thought it looked more natural to have the upper legs longer than the lower legs. And also, if I removed those, it would have just made the arms the same length as the legs. And I didn't want that to happen, because I thought that would look really unnatural and just really weird overall. But for the legs, they're both symmetrical. Both use these curved pieces. Let me get the arm out of the way. Both use curved pieces, which are also used on the upper arm here. And yeah, so they're both symmetrical. They're probably the most basic part of the build. They just kind of look like generic legs, so yeah, I guess that's fine. But they do definitely give it some nice curve, and I like it. Also, there is some dark blue here, which is revealed, and it's just a tile. That's completely flat tile, which is really cool. And oh, it's moving around a lot. And that's because the weight is extremely imbalanced, and it's just being supported by these two tiny mixer joints. Yeah, not great, but still, had to work with what we had, so that's all I could do. Another thing I don't really like about the legs is just the color distribution. On the arms, as you guys can see, there's a nice variety of blues and yellows, but down here, it's really all just the medium azure, I believe it's called. And that's just because I ran out of pieces after using all of them on the arms. And while it's fine, I would have definitely preferred to have a bit more yellow and definitely a bit more dark blue as well. Because the only places that the dark blue is present is under here, which you can barely notice, and on the feet. Now before moving on to the feet, I would just say that with the holes, I did choose to fill them in with the Technic piece, just because I think it looks a little better, even though it still leaves a massive hole. I just think it looks better filled in this way than just the hole inside the leg. This actually looks like it's kind of functional, even though it's not. And yeah, I definitely prefer that. Also, in terms of the shins, I just use the same curved pieces, which I've used up here. Yeah, I just use those because I think it just blends in quite well, and it gives a nice flow to the thickness. Moving on to the feet, both feet are exactly identical, only flipped around with the teeth. And by the way, these feet are actually unchanged from the original build. So because there really isn't a better way to build feet. That sounds really weird, but yeah, so I just kept them the same, and they do a decent job at supporting this. It's just that this guy's really, really tall, and so that's the main issue. Like comparing him to that same J-Mini figure, you guys can see just how tall this mech is. Like, that is massive. Now in terms of durability, which is something I think I should mention with all my mocks, this mech is definitely not one of the more durable ones. The Technic Chevrolet, which I showcased as my last mock, that one's a lot more durable than this one, which I guess is incomparable because that's Technic, but still, this one is definitely not that durable. If I do a basic drop from about this height, you guys can see that it stays the same, but if I go any higher than that, like just past the camera, it's gonna break soon. And that's mainly just because I couldn't get much support for places like this in the lower arms, because I just ran out of pieces, so that's an issue. But, you know, had to work with what I had, as I mentioned many times before. And yeah, so I think it's good enough. In terms of other weak points, the back here generally breaks off quite easily. That's just because it's connected by 6 studs in total, and it's actually quite a bit of weight for it to support. You know what, if you guys want to see a durability test like the one of the Technic set, make sure to like this video. And so in the end, am I proud of this set? Sure, why not? The original Thunder Dragon EVO set really is just for kids. And if I were a kid, I think I'd enjoy playing with it, even though it's not a great build. But with this set, I think that kids would have trouble playing with it, but they'd still like the way it looks. And I guess that's really what older audiences care about, the way it looks rather than how it actually functions, because they aren't really playing with it at that age anymore. But yeah, if I saw this on a shelf, I would probably skip out on it just because of that price tag. Like, it's not cheap. Lego's not cheap nowadays, but this is really just the definition of not being cheap. And if you guys want to see an actual review of the Thunder Dragon EVO, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'll get that coming soon. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later. Bye.